Okay, so here's my loaf after I plopped it out of the bowl. You'll notice that it's a little bit fluffy. It's bigger than when we put it in, but not massively bigger. It will rise again because we need to let it rise. But the first thing we need to do with this is I need to cut it into two pieces. So given that the yeast have been active in there for a while and they've been producing their carbon dioxide bubbles, the last thing I really want to do is pash this thing down to cut it. So with any luck, you may have some sort of bread knife, a serrated bread knife or something that would allow you to do some cutting and get through this nice and easy without putting tons and tons of pressure on the loaf. Because inside you're gonna find that there's already been a whole bunch of air bubbles and things starting to take place. It'll be difficult to see, but you can see the yeast has been working and making air bubbles on the inside. And if we pack that down, so if you push this down, you're actually gonna get rid of a bunch of those air bubbles, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the rise. So that's my cutting in half, and I'm going to take one of these halves and sort of pick it up and sort of safely set it aside because I'm doing this part the night before. I'm going to bake one of these, so I have a finished loaf to show you, but I'm also going to now take one of these loaves and flatten it out a little bit. So what I'm going to want to do with this loaf is a little challenging to do with only one hand, but I'm going to want to flatten this out a little bit. So I'm not going to do it really, really hard because I don't want to pound the air out of it, but I want to flatten this out a little bit now to make it into a somewhat rectangular shape. So I want this rectangular shape to be about, best way to put this to you guys would be about 2/3 of a ruler one way. So probably 20-ish centimeters one way by about a ruler's length, so 30 centimeters another. So if you look, we've almost got the right, so this right now is almost 30 centimeters. So if I laid a ruler down along it, it would be close to 30 centimeters. And I'm not gonna push too hard on the edges of this. I'm just kind of stretching the dough. So I don't wanna push it down, I'm kind of pulling and stretching the dough. And then I'm gonna push this out a bit more towards the side. So the spots where it feels the thickest, I'm going to push out towards the side. So I push, push, push. I'm gonna push this out as well, so that I get myself to something that looks kind of like this. So you'll notice that if you look closely at the dough, you'll see the air pockets and things are still in there. So we haven't totally gotten rid of all those. So I haven't beaten it down, but rather kind of stretched it out. Now what we're gonna wanna do at this point, and this is very challenging for me to do with one hand again, so what you're gonna wanna do at this point is sort of slowly take your loaf and roll it like this for this French loaf. Right, roll it, roll it, roll it. And if you get an air bubble like this, you'll notice there's a big air bubble here. You're gonna wanna kind of flatten that out as we come along. So you see the air bubble is coming. What you can do with that big air bubble, that's not a yeast bubble, that's just us coming through. I could cut it if I have to, makes it a little easier. And I get it rolled up so that it looks something like this. Now this is a traditional way to get sort of a baguette shape. Okay, so this would give us a baguette shape of a loaf. On the bottom, it's going to be a little bit sticky, so you're going to notice that if I lift this up, the bottom side will actually, that's our seam side. I want my seam side down. So what I'm going to want to do at this point is put my seam side down and stretch this out and let it sit like so, okay? And at this point, I'm going to grab myself my baking pan, okay? So on this baking pan, we are going to put the loaf. So what I'm going to do at this point here is I'm going to grab my cornmeal and I will show you what to do with that, and then we'll be ready for the next step. So see you in the next video.